think there's a lot of polarization even within the Republican camp. All the people who are testifying, Mark, are handpicked Republican, either nominees or political appointees. So everyone who is testifying was handpicked by Trump. And it's true that the Democrats are majority, so they're the ones running the hearing. But the witnesses are all, the polls of within the Republican Party. I think that a lot of the people who are not career officials or Foreign Service officers are out of their depth.
All right. So you know how every single time we think Trump's legal drama can't get any crazier, it does? Well, buckle up, because what just went down at the Supreme Court isn't just another court ruling. We're talking about stolen documents, leaked papers, MAGA world absolutely losing it, and Capitol Hill turning into a straight-up war zone. And yeah, this is happening right now. So here's what you need to know. The Supreme Court just dropped a decision that completely destroyed Trump's last major legal shield. Like, done, finished, game over. And the second that ruling came down, all hell broke loose. We're not talking about normal political outrage here. We're talking about something way bigger. Because within hours, and I mean hours, rumors started flying that confidential Supreme Court papers got stolen. Yeah, you heard that right, stolen. And these weren't just any documents. These were supposedly the internal deliberations, the behind-the-scenes conversations, the stuff that's never supposed to see the light of day. And guess where these papers ended up? All over social media. Far-right influencers got their hands on them first, or at least that's what people are saying, and they started sharing them like wildfire. X was exploding, Truth Social went nuts, Telegram channels were going crazy, the hashtags were trending everywhere, Capitol Meltdown, stolen Supreme papers. It was absolute chaos. But before we go any further, real quick, let's be honest, you can't really trust mainstream media anymore. That's why we built Pump Politics, to bring you real stories, real context, and no corporate spin. If you want to stay ahead of the headlines, join our free newsletter. We'll send the news straight to your inbox every day. Just click the link in the description to join. And if you just want to support what we're doing, join us, be part of the community that actually cares about the truth. All right, let's get back to the video. Now, here's where it gets really wild. MAGA loyalists aren't just mad about the Supreme Court decision. They're convinced, like fully convinced, that the whole system is rigged against them. They're calling it judicial collusion, deep state sabotage, a massive cover-up. And they want answers. So what did they do? They descended on Capitol Hill, demanding explanations. We're talking protests, screaming matches, total meltdown mode. And look, I get it. If you're a Trump supporter and you've been watching case after case pile up against him, watching the court shut down every legal strategy, and then you hear about leaked documents that supposedly prove corruption, yeah, you're gonna lose it. But here's the thing. Nobody can actually verify if these documents are real. Nobody knows who leaked them. Nobody knows if this is legit or just another conspiracy theory spinning out of control. But that doesn't matter anymore because the damage is done. MAGA world is fractured.
President Trump is still liable for everything he did while he was in office as an ordinary citizen. Unless the statute of limitations is run, still liable for everything he did while he was in office. Didn't get away with anything yet. We have a criminal justice system in this country. We have civil litigation. And former presidents are not immune from being accountable by either one.
No one's above the law in the United States. That's a foundational principle that I've talked about, coming from Federalist 69, coming from the structure of the Constitution. We're all equal before the law in the United States of America. The foundation of our Constitution was that, as Hamilton explained in Federalist 69, the presidency would not be a monarchy, and it specified all the ways that under the Constitution the president is not above the law. No one is above the law.
Like seriously fractured. You've got donors freaking out, strategists calling emergency meetings, online supporters demanding radical action, and Trump himself, well, he's caught in the middle of all this trying to figure out how to spin it, because this isn't just about one court case anymore. This is about trust. This is about whether his base believes the entire system, the courts, the government, everything is working against them. And can you believe this is happening right as we're heading into 2026? The midterms are coming. Republicans need to stay united, but instead we've got this massive revolt brewing. We've got conspiracy theories taking over. We've got people questioning the legitimacy of the Supreme Court itself. It's a disaster. So why does this matter? Because this isn't just legal drama. This is political dynamite. If MAGA world stays this divided, if they keep fighting amongst themselves about who to blame, if they keep pushing these stolen document theories, it could tear the Republican Party apart. And Democrats? Oh, they're watching all this with popcorn. They don't even need to attack Trump right now. His own supporters are doing it for them. Now, before we dive deeper, let me just say this. The Supreme Court decision that started all this, it was huge. It basically killed Trump's legal strategy to shield himself and his allies from prosecution. One of the final loopholes gone. Just like that. And according to political insiders, this was the one Trump's team was really counting on. They thought they had a shot. They thought they could win. But the court said no. And that triggered everything we're seeing right now. The chaos and panic erupting inside MAGA headquarters is unprecedented. Like we've seen Trump deal with legal problems before. We've seen his base rally around him. But this feels different. This feels like something's breaking. Because it's not just about defending Trump anymore. It's about whether the entire system can be trusted. It's about whether the courts are legitimate. It's about whether democracy itself is real or just theater. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to break down exactly what happened with this Supreme Court ruling. We're going to talk about these alleged stolen papers and why MAGA influencers are freaking out. We're going to explain why this could wreck Trump's entire political future. And we're going to show you why this story, right here, right now, is way bigger than just another Trump headline. Because this is about the 2026 election. This is about whether Trump can hold his base together. This is about whether conspiracy theories are now running the show. Stay with me. This gets wild. Okay, so let's get into the details. Because this story has layers, like serious layers. And if you don't understand what's really happening here, you're going to miss why this is such a big deal. First, the Supreme Court decision. What did they actually rule? Well, they basically shut down Trump's attempt to use executive privilege and immunity claims to block certain prosecutions. Now, I'm not going to bore you with all the legal jargon, but here's the simple version. Trump's lawyers have been arguing for months that he can't be prosecuted for things he did while he was president. They've been saying he has immunity. They've been saying executive privilege protects him. And they've been using every single legal trick in the book to delay and fight these cases. But the Supreme Court said nope. They ruled that this particular strategy, this specific loophole Trump was relying on, doesn't work. And that opened the door for prosecutors to move forward. So now, cases that were stuck, that were frozen, that everyone thought might never go anywhere, they can proceed. And that's a massive problem for Trump because we're not talking about one case. We're talking about multiple investigations, multiple potential charges, multiple legal nightmares, all coming at once. And here's the kicker. Trump's team thought they had this one in the bag. They really did. They had their legal arguments lined up. They had their strategy mapped out. They thought the court would give them at least partial protection. But when the decision came down, it was brutal. Total rejection. No wiggle room. Just a clean loss. And that sent shockwaves through MAGA headquarters. Now, let's talk about these stolen papers. Because this is where things go from normal political drama to absolute insanity. So the story goes like this. Shortly after the Supreme Court decision dropped, rumors started spreading that someone had leaked confidential documents from inside the court. And these weren't just the public rulings everyone can read. These were supposedly internal memos, draft opinions, communications between justices, the kind of stuff that never sees the light of day. And look, we've seen Supreme Court leaks before. Remember the Dobbs decision? That got leaked months before it was officially released. But this is different. Because the documents, if they're even real, allegedly show that certain justices were coordinating with political operatives, that they were discussing how to rule in ways that would hurt Trump, that there was bias, corruption, conspiracy, and if that's true, that's a constitutional crisis. But here's the problem. Nobody can prove any of this is real. The documents started showing up on X first. Far-right accounts with huge followings began posting screenshots. They were saying things like, look at this, proof the deep state controls the Supreme Court. They were saying this is why Trump never had a chance. And people ate it up, like immediately. No fact-checking, no verification, just instant belief because it confirmed what they already thought. Then the hashtag started, Capitol Meltdown trended for hours. Stolen Supreme papers hit the top 10. Thousands, maybe tens of thousands of MAGA activists were sharing these posts. They were tagging Trump. They were tagging Republican senators. They were demanding investigations. And the anger, it was real. You could feel it. This wasn't just online outrage. This was genuine fury. And then the protests. MAGA loyalists started showing up at the Capitol. Not huge numbers, but enough to make noise, enough to get media attention. They had signs. They had bullhorns. They were shouting about corruption and cover-ups. Some were calling for justices to resign. Some were demanding criminal investigations. It was chaos, pure chaos. But here's what's really going on beneath the surface. This isn't just about one court decision or some leaked papers. This is about trust. or more accurately, the complete collapse of trust. Because MAGA world has spent years being told that every institution is corrupt. The media lies, the FBI is weaponized, the courts are rigged, and every time something bad happens to Trump, it just confirms that narrative. So when this Supreme Court ruling came down, of course they assumed it was part of a conspiracy. Of course they believed the leaked documents, because in their worldview, that's the only explanation that makes sense. And honestly, can you blame them? If you've been consuming right-wing media for the past few years, if you've been watching Fox News and Newsmax and all these online influencers, you've been told over and over that Trump is the victim of a coordinated attack, that the establishment wants him gone, that they'll do anything to destroy him. So yeah, when evidence appears, even sketchy unverified evidence that seems to prove all that, of course you're going to believe it. But here's the reality. These documents probably aren't real. I mean, maybe they are. Anything's possible. But the more likely explanation is that someone fabricated them, or took real documents and added fake context, or just straight up made the whole thing up. Because that's what happens in our current media environment. People create content that fits the narrative. They feed the outrage machine. They get clicks and followers and influence. And truth becomes secondary. So now we've got this situation where MAGA world is tearing itself apart. You've got one faction that believes the documents and wants to burn the whole system down. You've got another faction that thinks this is a distraction from more important issues. You've got Trump trying to figure out how to use this to his advantage without looking crazy. And you've got Republican leadership in Congress absolutely panicking because they need unity going into 2026. But instead, they've got revolt and chaos. And the Democrats? Oh man, they're loving this. They don't even need to campaign right now. They can just sit back and watch Republicans implode. Every day MAGA world spends fighting about stolen Supreme Court papers is a day they're not organizing voters, not raising money, not building a coherent message for the midterms. It's political malpractice, but they can't help themselves because the outrage is too strong. Here's the other thing. This story has already evolved beyond the facts. Like, it doesn't even matter anymore if those documents are real, or if the Supreme Court decision was fair, or if any of this makes sense. What matters is the perception. What matters is that millions of Trump supporters now believe the system is rigged. They believe the courts are corrupt. They believe they're under attack. And you can't undo that. You can't fact check emotion. You can't logic someone out of a position they didn't logic themselves into. So where does this leave us? Well, Trump's legal problems just got way worse because he lost that Supreme Court ruling. His political problems just got way worse because his base is fracturing. And his credibility problems just got way worse because he's either got to embrace these conspiracy theories, which makes him look unhinged, or reject them, which makes him look weak to his core supporters. It's a lose-lose situation, and the timing could not be worse. We're heading into 2026. Midterms are critical. Control of Congress is up for grabs. And instead of a unified Republican Party ready to fight, we've got this absolute mess. We've got protests at the Capitol. We've got conspiracy theories going mainstream. We've got donors freaking out and strategists pulling their hair out and everyone asking the same question. Can Trump actually hold this together? Think about it this way. If you're a Republican strategist right now, you're absolutely terrified because you know that winning elections requires discipline. It requires staying on message. It requires appealing to persuadable voters in swing districts. But how do you do that when your base is consumed with conspiracy theories? How do you message to moderates when your most vocal supporters are protesting at the Capitol over stolen Supreme Court papers that might not even exist? You can't. That's the answer. You just can't. So what happens is you lose those moderate voters. You lose independents who think this is all insane. And you end up with a smaller, more radical, less electorally viable coalition, which is great for Trump's ego maybe, but terrible for actually winning elections. All right, let's bring this home and break down exactly what this means going forward, because we've covered a lot: the court ruling, the leaked papers, the MAGA revolt, all of it. But now we need to talk about what happens next and why you should care. So first, the Supreme Court decision. This matters because it removes one of Trump's last major legal protections. His lawyers have been fighting to keep certain cases from moving forward by claiming immunity and executive privilege. That strategy just died, which means prosecutors can now proceed with investigations and potential charges that were previously frozen. And we're not talking about minor stuff here. We're talking about serious legal exposure that could result in actual consequences. Now, does that mean Trump's definitely getting charged with crimes? No, not necessarily. But it means the pathway is now clear, the legal barriers are gone, and prosecutors who've been waiting, who've been building cases, they can finally move. So over the next few months, expect to see a lot more legal activity around Trump. More court dates, more hearings, more headlines, and every single one of those is going to be ammunition for his opponents in 2026. Second, the stolen documents conspiracy. Whether these papers are real or fake, and my money's on fake, doesn't actually matter anymore because the damage is done. MAGA world believes them. They've internalized this narrative that the Supreme Court is corrupt and working against Trump. And that belief is going to shape how they view every future ruling, every future decision, every future legal development. They're not going to trust anything that goes against Trump. They're going to assume it's all rigged. And that creates a massive problem for Republicans because you can't build a winning political coalition on pure conspiracy theories. You need policies. You need messaging. You need organization. But right now, MAGA world is so consumed with fighting perceived enemies, with exposing corruption, with defending Trump, that they're not doing the basic work of politics. They're not registering voters. They're not reaching out to moderates. They're not building a platform that appeals to independents. They're just rage posting on social media and showing up at protests. Third, the Capitol meltdown. Look, protests happen. That's democracy. But when your own supporters are revolting against the system, when they're showing up at the Capitol demanding answers about conspiracy theories, that's not a good look. It makes the party seem unstable. It makes leadership seem weak. And it scares off the exact voters Republicans need to win in 2026. Moderate suburbanites who just want normalcy and competence. And here's the brutal truth. Trump thrives on chaos. He always has. When things are crazy, when everyone's talking about him, when controversy is swirling, he dominates the conversation. But that strategy has limits because chaos exhausts people. It turns off persuadable voters, and it makes it really hard to govern or campaign effectively. So while Trump might personally benefit from all this attention, his party doesn't. His candidates don't. His political movement doesn't. So what happens now? Well, a few things. First, watch to see if Trump embraces these stolen document theories or distances himself. If he goes all in on the conspiracy, that tells you he's decided his only path forward is doubling down on the base. If he backs off, that tells you he's worried about looking too extreme. Either way, it's a test of his political instincts and his ability to read the room. Second, watch how Republican leadership responds. Do they defend the Supreme Court? Do they call for investigations into the leaked papers? Do they try to change the subject entirely? Because whatever they do, it's going to upset somebody. If they defend the court, MAGA world will accuse them of being establishment sellouts. If they embrace the conspiracy, moderates will run screaming. There's no good option here. Third, watch the polls. Because ultimately, this is all about 2026. If Trump's legal problems and this MAGA revolt start hurting Republican numbers, if candidates start losing races because they're too closely tied to chaos and conspiracy, that's when things might change. Politicians care about winning, and if Trump becomes a liability instead of an asset, you're going to see people quietly distance themselves. Now, let's zoom out for a second. Why does this story matter beyond just Trump and MAGA drama? Because it's a test of our political system. Can our institutions, the courts, the Congress, the media handle this level of distrust and conspiracy? Can democracy function when millions of people genuinely believe the system is rigged against them? Can we have productive political debates when everyone's operating from completely different sets of facts? I don't know the answer. Nobody does. But this Supreme Court situation is a preview of what's coming. Because as we get closer to 2026 and then 2028, things are only going to get more intense. The stakes are higher, the divisions are deeper, and the willingness to believe conspiracy theories is stronger than ever. And here's what really worries me. This isn't just about Trump anymore. He's created a template. He's shown other politicians that you can reject unfavorable court rulings, that you can claim everything's rigged, that you can mobilize supporters around conspiracy theories and face no real consequences, at least not immediately. So we're going to see more of this. More politicians claiming persecution, more fake document scandals, more protests and revolts and chaos. Unless, and here's the key, voters decide they've had enough. Unless people start demanding actual policies instead of grievances. Unless the exhaustion sets in and persuadable voters say, you know what? I just want boring, competent government. That's the only thing that changes the incentive structure. That's the only thing that makes politicians say, maybe chaos isn't the best strategy. So where does this leave us right now, today? Well, Trump just lost a major Supreme Court battle. His legal problems are getting worse. MAGA world is fractured and fighting over conspiracy theories. The Capitol's a mess, and 2026 is right around the corner. Republicans needed unity and momentum. Instead, they've got revolt and chaos. Democrats are sitting pretty. And the rest of us? We're just watching this train wreck unfold in real time. One more thing before we wrap. Pay attention to what happens with these stolen documents over the next few weeks. If they get debunked, if someone proves they're fake, does MAGA world accept that? Or do they just claim the debunking is part of the cover-up? Because that'll tell you everything you need to know about where this movement is headed. If evidence and facts still matter, there's hope. If they don't, well, buckle up. It's going to be a wild ride. Now let's talk about the bigger picture here, because what we're witnessing isn't just a political moment, it's a turning point. The relationship between Trump and his base has always been unique, but this situation with the Supreme Court ruling and the stolen papers conspiracy is testing that relationship in new ways. Can Trump maintain control when his legal shields are falling? Can he keep supporters unified when they're this angry and divided? Can he turn this disaster into a rallying cry? History suggests he'll try. Trump's entire political playbook is built on turning negatives into positives. Every indictment becomes proof of persecution. Every court loss becomes evidence of corruption. Every setback becomes a fundraising opportunity. So don't be surprised if within days, Trump starts using this Supreme Court disaster to raise millions of dollars. Don't be surprised if he frames himself as the ultimate victim of a corrupt system. That's what he does. But here's the question. Does it still work? Because we've been through this cycle so many times now. Russia investigation, impeachment, January 6 hearings, multiple indictments, and every time, Trump survives. His base sticks with him. His support holds firm. But maybe, just maybe, there's a limit. Maybe at some point, the chaos becomes too much. Maybe at some point, even loyal supporters start thinking, is this really worth it? We'll find out. The next few months are crucial. If Trump can weather this storm, if he can keep his base energized despite the legal losses and the internal fighting, then he's still a major force in American politics. But if this is the moment where things start to crack, where supporters start drifting away, where the coalition begins to collapse, then everything changes. And remember, this isn't happening in a vacuum. The economy matters, foreign policy matters, other political issues matter. But right now, all anyone's talking about is Trump's legal drama and this Capitol meltdown, which means Republicans aren't defining themselves by their ideas or their vision. They're being defined by chaos and conspiracy, and that's a losing strategy long term. Democrats understand this. That's why they're not jumping into attack right now. That's why they're letting Republicans tear themselves apart. That's why they're just watching, because sometimes the best political move is to let your opponent self-destruct, and right now that's exactly what's happening. So what should you, as someone watching all this, take away? Well, first, understand that we're in uncharted territory. The combination of Trump's legal problems, the conspiracy theories, the institutional distrust, the political polarization is creating a situation we've never really seen before in American politics, and nobody knows how it ends. Second, don't assume this is the end for Trump. People have been predicting his political demise for years, and he keeps proving them wrong. So yeah, things look bad right now, but Trump survived worse, or at least he thinks he has. Third, pay attention to what Republican leaders do, not what they say, but what they do. Do they stick with Trump through all this? Do they start quietly backing away? Do they try to change the subject? Their actions will tell you where they think this is headed. And finally, remember that 2026 is what matters most right now. All this chaos, all this drama, it only really matters if it affects election results. If Republicans lose seats because of Trump's baggage, that's when things change. If they hold or gain seats despite all this, then the chaos continues. So watch the polls, watch the races, watch where the money goes. That's where the real story is. All right, that's where we're at. Capitol meltdown, stolen Supreme Court papers, MAGA revolt, legal disaster for Trump, political chaos for Republicans, and all of it happening right as 2026 starts heating up. This story isn't over, not even close. So stay tuned, because whatever happens next is going to be absolutely insane. And hey, if you made it this far, thanks for watching. Drop a comment and let me know what you think. Are these documents real or fake? Is this the beginning of the end for Trump? Or is this just more noise? Can Republicans survive this chaos? Let's talk about it. Hit that like button if you found this breakdown helpful. Subscribe if you want more deep dives on the craziest political stories. And I'll see you in the next one, where we'll probably be covering whatever insane thing happens next. Because let's be real, something always does.